All right, so really, after you have gone through your objectives, even before you do the objectives, you need to decide what type of lesson plan am I going to do. There are actually different types of lesson plans. We have backward design lesson plan, uh, problem-based learning lesson plan, and then we have 5E model lesson plan. So for this course, we are going to focus on the 5E model lesson plan. So what is this 5E model lesson plan? So this model is named 5E because we have 5 steps, and each step starts with E. That's what it is named for. And really, the 5E model lesson plan is, I think, it's a very easy lesson plan to follow. That's why I have selected it for this class. And also, it gives the teacher and the students the ability to interact with the materials that they are using. And we'll see what we mean by that. Now, what are these 5 E's? So these 5 E's, the first E is engage. For this point, you want to pick students' interest and get them personally involved in the lesson. Right? You want to understand their prior knowledge. So you are capturing their interest during engage. During explore, you involve them in activities. If you have an experiment, this is the time where they do the actual experiment. The actual learning or the actual activities for that class are done during the explore phase. Then we move on to explain phase. In this phase, you provide students with an opportunity to communicate what they have learned and maybe figure out what it means. You try to create meaning uh, from the lesson. So this part is where you have something that we are going to talk about later on, making meaning conference. Then you go to extend or elaborate. In this case, you allow your students to use their new knowledge, the knowledge they got from the lesson, and continue. You want to deepen their understanding. You can also talk about application. Can they apply the knowledge to new situations? So this is extend, elaborate. Evaluate. You assess how much learning has taken place. This is where you see types of assessments, formative and summative. That is something that we are going to talk about later. Now, let's look at engage itself. And on the left side here, I'll just describe what engage is. On the right side here, I provide some examples of how you go about it. So in engage, you want to generate the interest. You want to access prior knowledge, what they already know. Try to connect past knowledge, set parameters, and frame ideas. This is the engage part. So I'll give you an example of a lesson. So this part is I'm teaching something like periodic table. That is this one. This part I'm teaching electric circuit. So I'll say, you know what, on the periodic table side, can you share with me what you know about atoms, elements, and the periodic table? So the students will discuss that. Then I show them the periodic table and ask them how they think the table was arranged. So I'm trying to just generate interest. I'm trying to get their prior knowledge. And then I'll put up a KWL. So K is what you want they want to know. W is what they know. L is what they have learned. So KWL chart. So because it is at engage phase, you want them to post what they want to know or what they already know and what they want to learn. So I'll post something on there and say, these are sticker notes. I want you to write down on those sticker notes and go paste it on the column on what you already know, post it under K, and what you want to know, post it under W, so that you are generating that interest, you are accessing their prior knowledge, and they are giving you ideas of where they want to go with their learning. In terms of electric circuit, I can give them something. Read a passage on electric circuit. What do you understand about electric circuit? What do you think are the components of an electric circuit? So from this passage, they can talk something about the components electric of an electric circuit. And actually, you can also do the same. You can put up a KW chart for them to deal with, to tell you what they know and what they want to learn. So this part is the engage parts. You are generating interest. Now, after you have done all those engaged parts, then you go to explore. Here, you deal with key concepts, things that you want them to learn in your class. If there are new skills, you discover them. You do a lot of probing. The experiences, exploration is the experiences they are going to face in your class. So if you are talking about the periodic table, which is down here, I say give students a card containing elements, or I say not a card as such, but cards. Give the students cards containing elements and chemical properties. Ask them to arrange the elements in order of atomic numbers and chemical properties. Ask them to describe the arrangements. So at this point, they are actually doing the activities that you want them to do. Now, if we go to electric circuit, provide connecting wires, switches, batteries. Show the students a diagram. Yeah, ask them to discuss in their groups. So I'll put S here and come up with a way to connect a circuit from the wires based on circuit diagram. So in this case, you are asking a procedural question as they connect wires. You're asking them to explain as they are connecting the wires. So that is the explore phase. Then we have explain phase. Now, in this phase, you are connecting prior knowledge and background to the new discoveries that they have done. You want them to be able to communicate new understandings. You want them to communicate in their groups, and you want them to communicate to the whole class. So if there is something that they know from their homes that is informal language, you want to make it more formal. Like when we say work, What do we mean at home? It means you go to a job and do something there. When you say I'm working, it means you have a job. But what does it mean when you say I'm working? When you say I'm working in physical sense, in that case, you mean force times distance. So this is the explained part where you deal with things like that. Now, if we talk about the electric circuit there, they explain. You can say ask students to explain why the light bulb turned on after connecting the circuit. Ask them to explain why the light bulb turned off after disconnecting. They need to be able to speculate what they think is in the wire, and that is responsible for electric circuit. So this can be done by a worksheet, or you can just have a class discussion on that. So you can do it in several ways. But what is important is you want your students to be able to explain, to understand more what they are learning. Now, if I talk about the atom, I'll ask my students to explain the arrangements on the periodic tables, ask them to explain the presence of gaps in the arrangements, ask them to walk around to other groups and compare with colleagues. Right? Let them discuss the similarities and differences in their arrangements. At this point, you can say maybe you should do your things in front of the board, right? So that everyone can see, or everyone can see your descriptions, and they can come in and help you and maybe ask you questions. All this is done during the explanation stage of the 5E model. After explain, we go to extend or elaborate. Now, in this case, you are applying new learning to new or a similar situation. So you are extending and explaining the concept. So you dig deeper into the concept that you are learning. You are trying to communicate new understanding with formal language, right? Now you have known that work is just force times distance. How can you use it in different cases? Can you use this term force times distance in terms of a vehicle traveling at a specific with specific force and specific distance? Can you use it in terms of something that is falling from the sky? So that is the extend elaborate. Now, if I go to my electric circuit, I would say I would distribute flashlights to students and ask them in their groups to come up with a circuit diagram for the flashlight. So now I want them to apply the knowledge they have learned about connecting circuit to a real life situation. They should explain how the flashlight works. They should compare the components of the flashlight to that of the electric circuit they just connected. So I'm trying to deepen their understanding. If I go to my periodic table, I'll ask students to deduce the properties of elements that are supposed to be in the gaps of the periodic table they created. Ask them to talk about elements they have seen in real life or that are used in real life, like chlorine in water, like the use of bromine, things like those. I'll ask them to write down the importance of understanding the periodic table in real life. So this trying to extend their knowledge and understanding on this. So the last part is evaluate. Now, when we talk about evaluate, you are looking at two types of evaluations you are going to give, or two types of assessments you are going to give to your students. The first one is formative assessment. So formative assessment happens throughout your lesson. Examples are you listen to them as they discuss, you ask them to contribute uh, to class activities, you can do think pair activities, you can do many more activities like discussion in their pairs. I mean, you can use things like clickers and the like. So that is formative assessment. Assessment that happen as the lesson is progressing. So this is the assessment that happens as the lesson is progressing. Or and not or. You can have a summative assessment. I mean, I would advise that you have both types of assessment. You can ask them to complete a worksheet. You can give them an after lesson quiz. So this is assessment that happens after the lesson. You can give them conceptual surveys and things like those. So that will cover the evaluation part. So when we talk about a lesson plan, you need to have first. I would want you to have a standards over there at the top of your lesson, and then you have objectives, and then you have materials, and then you have the 5E. Show me what you are going to do during engage, what you are going to do during explore, what about during explain, what about during extend or elaborate, what about during evaluate or during your evaluation. So this is the 5E model lesson plan. So what I'm going to do is I am going to give you the lesson plan in class, and it should help you just have an idea when you are completing the first assignment on lesson plan. So take note of that. And I mean, this video will go with a video assignment which you are also going to complete. Thank you.